Welcome in to the DNVR Sports Podcast, brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery. I am your host today, Jesse Montano, joined by my great friend, AJ Hafley. Come on down to the bar, check out all of our countless number of Breckenridge Brewery beers that we have on tap. Dude, what is it about this show that I just I can't speak?
Like all the time. Every time we do this show together, you're just like, I've lost the ability to talk coherently.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's just come get beer, come get seltzers down at the bar. Head on down to the farmhouse they've got over off Santa Fe. Super dope location, especially now that it's getting warm out. Sit outside. They've got a huge open air seating area. All good things from our friends over at Breckenridge. AJ, how is the True North treating you? You're almost done. Almost heading back.
Dude, it's like, so we had the big snow.
Yep.
And then it chilled for a day. And then it snowed. It's like snowed again. Like it started to melt and then it like real snowed again.
Yeah.
And then we are fostering a puppy. She is very cute, but a lot of work.
Puppy or like
she's about a year old, so
okay. Yeah.
pretty puppy-ish,
pretty green. Yeah
and now we're in the midst of like 3 straight days of rain. And so it's just like gray and miserable and I'm like, dude, this is why people hate it here.
Yeah.
It's just gray and miserable, like even on its nicer days.
Yeah,
but
dude, I know
in like 4 weeks, it'll be beautiful. It'll be 65 degrees. It'll be sunny. People will be out walking their dogs, and they're going to be making that the best of what Winnipeg and Manitoba have to offer, and it'll be awesome. And I will have missed all of that.
Right when it's getting nice, dude. Yeah. Right, so everyone knows like where I stand on the winter and the cold weather and stuff. Mm-hmm. But more than anything else, dude, it's just the gray, cloudy. It actually, all jokes aside, it messes with my mood for the entire day.
It can throw off your equilibrium, man. And that's one thing about Colorado I've always appreciated. It's very, very sunny.
Yeah, no, it's been a nice little stretch of weather here, but bro, you have missed this has been the windiest month I can remember easily. It's just every day the wind has just been howling for over a month now. Ready for that to be done. AJ,
dope weather reports 4 minutes in.
Yeah. This is the DNVR weather podcast. We'll be heading to meteorology school and just talking about weather all over the place. No, AJ, we're going to get into the Avs and the Nuggets today. I thought it was an appropriate time given where the Nuggets are currently sitting in their postseason. Only 5 games left for the Avs. They will be starting their playoffs anytime between May 2nd and May 7th, 8th, I think would be a pretty safe window. I
would say even more like 5th, but yeah.
Yeah.
You are very safe in that window that you have presented.
Yeah. Yeah. Bro, I was thinking about that this week. I was like, I don't know how all the wind,
you know how people handle extreme anything in any climate? They stay inside.
Yeah. So, all right. This is the last thing on the weather. This is always my favorite thing about whenever I tweet about the cold weather and stuff and people give me shit. They always talk about oh, winter's so great. You can put on layers and staying inside by the fire. And I was like, so all of your favorite things about the winter are avoiding the winter. And I just find that so interesting. Where warm weather people, they enjoy being out in the warm weather and doing stuff. Cold weather people just like to list ways that they avoid being out in the cold weather. It's just say you're an introvert.
It's just an excuse for us to not go places. That's all it is. It's the ultimate behavior shield.
Just I was actually
right behind that. Oh, it's cold outside.
No, it's cold. It's snowing.
Sorry.
It's not safe. Yeah, I can't drive. I was actually just telling Hannah there was something that we were talking last night about redoing in our new house. I was like, we'll just wait till the winter and we're locked inside anyways, and we'll knock all that shit out.
The number of things that Z has gotten done around the house because she's just I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. Got to fill this. Got to fill the time somehow.
Dude, she finds projects. It's very impressive.
Yeah, always. Avs and Nuggets. we're gonna take a step back here a little bit, because one of the things that I find really fascinating about these two teams is that they have followed really, really similar paths for 10 years now, like both in terms of apathy and then on the rise. And it seemed like this year was the first year in a long time they have really gone in separate directions, and there's reasons for that. Maybe that we'll get into. Avs obviously finishing up their regular season here. They're on a 3-game road trip. They dropped the game a couple nights ago in Seattle, 3-2. Really didn't play well. Not in terms of like execution. There was just like 10% effort. I mean, they were
5 game of the season for them.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, that game, one of the Arizona games, one of the Arizona losses.
Yeah.
And I would say like
New Jersey,
the Washington game in the first half of the season in New Jersey, another very good call.
Like, dude, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I had a beer league game. We were up 11-1 in the second period. The Avs effort level matched my effort level for the back half of that game. Like, just
it took you getting up 11-1 to take your foot off the gas. You might be kind of a dick.
No lead is safe.
In beer league, I guess that's really no offense to Joy.
It did just turn into. It did just turn. I was like, all right, when I come over the boards, how far can I coast just using the like inertia of coming off the wall? And that was what the Avs looked like a couple nights ago. Then on the flip side of that, the Denver Nuggets lose an absolute heartbreaker in Game 3 last night. Now trail the Golden State Warriors 3-0 in this series. People had a feeling this series wasn't going to go well. I don't quite know if you had many people picking it to be 3-0. We always say you're never in trouble till you lose at home. Well, the Nuggets lost their first game at home last night. We are going to get into all of that, where these teams are at right now. But I want to turn the clocks back just a few years. We don't have to go all the way back to we don't have to relive the 2010s, because it was terrible for both these teams. But I want to go back to 2017-2018 season for both clubs. Now, the other thing that is different about this year is because of the Olympic break that didn't really happen, that happened but didn't happen in the NHL. We have a rare scheduling setup where the NBA is actually 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the NHL, when normally it's the reverse. The NHL starts their playoffs a couple weeks before, they finish their postseason a couple weeks before, et cetera, et cetera. We are in the reverse. So go back to 2017-2018. And this is the first year after the 48-point year for the Avalanche. Jared Bednar's second year as a coach. And they really, it was such a massive turnaround from the year before, but they were absolutely still a team that was just trying to get in. Takes them all the way to game 82. They have to beat the St. Louis Blues, and they have to beat them in regulation to get in. They do both of those things. They get into a first-round series against Nashville. On the other side of that, just a couple weeks later, the Denver Nuggets also take it all the way to game 82 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Winner gets in. The Denver Nuggets lose. So let's talk about 2017-2018 for just a minute here.
Heartbreaker of a game, too.
Heartbreaker of a game. But both these teams come down to the very last game you can. There's no play-in in the NBA or NHL. And I mean, the Avs won what was a pretty close game with the Blues. You know, it took an empty netter to seal things. And then the Nuggets lose a heartbreaker late. What do you remember from these two teams, AJ, in that season?
Well, I think the big similarities of those two teams that were really finding their identities. And it was the blossoming of young stars. You know, you had to figure out exactly who you were. You know, the Nikola Jokic just didn't just like show up and just happen.
Right.
You know, like there was a gestation period. There was a time where he had to figure out how to be Nikola Jokic and to be effective. And to be honest with you, the coaching staff had to figure out
how to utilize him.
Yeah, because how do you use a guy that the NBA has never really seen before?
Right,
You know,
right.
you're not looking. You don't. Michael Malone didn't roll into Denver like, okay, I have a plan for what to do with Jokic.
With this
You know, like,
unicorn.
yeah, like this guy is part of my building block for the future here. That's not how that happened. It's not how it went. And so there was a big process of trying to feel all of it out and how, just how to be. That
Yeah.
was his, I think, his second or third, it was his third season. 17-18 was his third season. And so they had really like started to understand we
What
have
he
to
could
play,
bring.
we have to play through this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was also, I mean, you also had, Jamal Murray was 20 years old.
Right.
Like Emmanuel Mudiay was still a big part of that team. Gary Harris was still, Gary Harris. Like he was still I think that was like one of the last years where he was that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you had a really good like young group that they were trying to build around. And that was like the identity.
Yeah.
For both of the locker room, the future young stars. There was no MPJ for the Nuggets, and for the Avalanche, there was no Cale Makar.
Yep.
It was, how good is Mikko Rantanen? This is back when we didn't know how good Mikko Rantanen was going to be. Going into that season, the conversation about Mikko Rantanen was, hey, can he be a 70-point guy?
Right.
Like we didn't. He was coming off of a 20-goal rookie year where we all felt like this guy's a player. He's a player. But it was, how are Matt Duchene and Nathan McKinnon going to make this work? How, but Duchene wanted out. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to end up? What's the outcome here? Was kind of their drama. Mm-hmm. And they end up with Sam Girard, and they push the postseason with this 19-year-old defenseman that was supposed to be back in junior. That was supposed to be in the queue. And you had just two really, like, you had two teams. The Nuggets were a little bit older than the Avs were, but
not by much.
Their core was not. Their core was mostly still kids.
Well, and I liked what you said about both teams finding their identity that season, because you also remember that was the Nathan McKinnon breakout year. To that point, he had been a 60-point guy. And then, there's the Duchene trade, like you just mentioned. And it was after that, starting, immediately after that trade, it's been the Nathan McKinnon that we've seen now for the last few years. But similar to Jokic, it was still like all right, well, maybe we think there's more that this guy has to give, trying to figure out the best way to deploy him. What are the best, situations to put him in? And that was really the first year I remember those two guys in particular really starting to find themselves at the pro level. And coming off that 48-point year for the Avs, Patrick Waugh had just quit right before the preseason started. They had missed the playoffs a couple of years in a row after the miracle run in 2014. And I don't think before that season, either the Avs or the Nuggets really kind of knew who they were, knew what they wanted to be, knew what they wanted their staple to be. And that year, I think, was the year they started to find it. And that's why it sucked losing in game 82. It was heartbreaking, but for the Nuggets, but you felt better. You felt reasons for optimism for the first time in a while.
Yeah. And like, that was Malone's third season. So it's not, like Bednar was a total unknown.
Yep. Yeah.
And Malone, that was his third season, and that was their third straight season of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So you felt like in the Nuggets world, they were still getting better. They were still improving. They were still trending upward. And it was because they had unearthed this gem in Jokic. It was because Jamal Murray had started to show that, he could play. We still weren't really sure how good Jamal was going to be.
Right.
But like he had at least had a season under his belt where that was a year where he took a good step from rookie to sophomore year, and you were like, okay, if these guys keep progressing, these two guys are going to be foundational pieces. And look, losing that game got them MPJ. That's the pick, and who knows if they would have gotten MPJ a pick or two later had they made the postseason or whatever. And that's where draft luck helped both of these franchises immensely. MPJ gets they draft MPJ with that pick after not making that postseason, and then the Avalanche lose that lottery the year before and take Cale Makar.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought both those guys up, because that is where the next part of this conversation goes. MPJ did not play the 18-19 season. He sat out the entire season with, was it back injury?
Yeah, he had back surgery in college.
Yep. So a back injury. Cale Makar plays out the entire 18-19 season at UMass, gets his team all the way to the national championship. Both teams make the playoffs. Both the Avs and Nuggets make the playoffs. Don't need game 82 to do so. And halfway through the first round, Cale Makar leaves college, joins the Avs. Kind of takes the team by storm in that game. His first game, scores a goal. The Avs roll over the Calgary Flames, which were his hometown team growing up, and really kind of starts ushering in this new era. And then on the flip side of that, the Nuggets also get out of the first round, and now both these teams go from needing game 82, either get in or miss. Now, just a year later, they're both on to the second round. Maybe, there wasn't a ton of expectations for either team in that second round. So they both lose, but it's viewed as a massive step forward. I'll ask you the same question. That next year, 2018, 2019, what do you remember about the way that these two teams kind of lined up?
I remember watching, God, it was Whiplash, because I remember watching game 1 of Avs Flames. Mm-hmm. We had a watch party at Ice House downtown.
Nice. Yep. All right. I remember this very clearly. Yep.
And it was the same night as a Nuggets game. And so the bar had both on.
Yeah.
And game 1, Nuggets Spurs in the postseason, Murray missed a couple of pretty makeable, in particular, like one makeable, what it might have been a game-winning shot in game 1, mm-hmm. and they lose. And the Avs don't play very well.
Yep. Get shut out.
And yeah, they don't play very well. They just don't look engaged at all. You're like, this could be a short series, because mm-hmm. they were not competitive in that at all. And they lose. And game 2 for both franchises, the Nuggets were on the verge of going down 2-0 to San Antonio, going back to San Antonio.
Yep.
Murray has an insane, like, as we would come to know, like, this is a thing that he would do.
Yeah.
But has an insane stretch in the fourth quarter, plays great. They pull out of it. They win that game. The Avs come back and tie the game in Calgary, game 2.
Yep.
JT Compher scores, ties the game late with the goalie pulled. Nathan McKinnon wins it in overtime. It's 1-1. Both things changed. Cale Makar showed up in game 3. Both series just changed after that. Both teams changed after that. The Nuggets took care of the Spurs, and it really, I don't remember every detail of the rest of that series, but I remember feeling like this isn't going to be very close. And the Avs laid the wood on Calgary. And like Mike Smith playing out of his mind.
It wasn't.
It was kind of competitive.
Yeah, no, it after game 2, I mean, the Avs were running downhill, but you mentioned Jamal Murray in that game 2 for the Nuggets, and that series against the Spurs was the first time. Look, obviously, like I'm from Denver. I watched the Nuggets. I'm a fan of the Nuggets, all that stuff. But I saw you talking to someone on Twitter today. Like, hockey is where I live. That's that's what I live and breathe and all that stuff. And that series against the Spurs was that was the first time I really remember Jamal Murray. Like, you can't ignore this dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That to me was his like kind of like coming out party, was that series of, I'm legit. I'm a top player, not only on this team, but in this league. And like you said, just the way that he took over in the back half of that game too, it just really seemed to change the tone for the entire series. For them, and then the Nathan McKinnon overtime winner, it felt kind of the same for both teams. And then, like you said, Cale Makar comes in, and it's just this huge injection of life into the team, into the organization, into the fan base. Both teams go on to lose in 7 games in round 2.
A little different feel because the Nuggets were the higher seeded team, and I think they probably, we look back on that and they should have won. Should have beat Portland. But then the Avs were supposed to get Vegas, remember, and they had the cross check incident took place. That changes the course of a lot of histories.
Yeah.
If that's Vegas, we have no idea what that series looks like.
Right.
And especially because that Vegas team played the way that Avs team played. And that would have been a much better matchup back then than it ended up becoming, because Pete DeBoer at the time was the Sharks head coach, and the Avs had to go through Pete DeBoer, and it didn't, like, he's their kryptonite apparently. But yeah, they lose in 7. They both lose in the second round, and everybody was happy. Everybody was like, look, like, you're feeling great about it. The Avs were the 8th seed, but oh my God, now they have Cale Makar, who dropped in, and I think he had like 7 points in 10 games or some, whatever like it ended up being, however many games he ended up playing. And you felt like the Nuggets had just given MPJ the kind of the free season to get healthy. And it was like optimism was huge moving forward. Yeah.
And so I want to get into MPJ next, because that is kind of, again, where these two teams continue to just, they had parallels at every turn. It was Cale Makar for the Avs coming in as the injection of life. It's MPJ for the Nuggets. And to your point, AJ, they did that. They went on that playoff run that had everyone feeling good, even though they lost. What a huge step forward. And we've got MPJ coming. Unlike, the Avs where Cale Makar jumped in and he was part of that second round run, the Nuggets did that, and it was like, wow, they just accomplished that. They were the higher seed. You're at a point where you can be disappointed by that, and it's only getting better. So I want to get into that, but of course, we are going to remind you guys that this is the DNVR Sports Podcast, brought to you guys by Breckenridge Brewery. We are also brought to you guys by our good friends over at Evoca TV, which I keep seeing their name pop up more and more places. Nothing but great reviews. So head on over there to Evoca TV and see what's going on. If you haven't been able to watch the Nuggets and Avs games like we are talking about, all these games we're talking about, you would have been able to watch if you had Evoca TV. It's a totally new TV delivery system that is less expensive, more efficient, offers a superior picture than legacy providers. It includes service includes local networks like Altitude Sports and see, there it is again, bro. I just can't talk. And a ton of other national channels. Evoca TV is growing constantly and adding new channels to their lineup every single day. The service is now available in Denver, Colorado Springs, Phoenix, Boise, and Twin Falls, Idaho. I could have not said any of that. All that is really important is Ivaka has altitude sports, making it easy to follow the Colorado teams you love, including the Nuggets, Avalanche, Rapids, and Mammoth. Plus, you'll have coverage of the Rams, Pioneers, and some baseball too with the addition of AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountain. Head on over to evoca.tv/DNVR. It's only $25 per month plus receiver, no contracts, no hidden fees, and the price is locked in for 2 years. Again, that's Evoca, evoca.tv/DNVR. As we come down the home stretch here, head on over there so that you can get these last few Avs games and the first round of the playoffs all easy, right on your TV. No questions asked. Don't need to be heading to any sketchy sites or anything like that. We are also brought to you guys by our great friends over at DraftKings. I did not have a great week on DraftKings this last week. Me personally looking to turn that around as always. Take all my money and I'll just keep coming back for more. College basketball is done, but you guys know there is all kinds of ways to make money on DraftKings. Yeah, it ended very well for a member of this pod. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can bet on pretty much anything using same game parlays. One of my favorite ways to find some great value on the Avs, actually. It's hard to find positive money on the Avs this time of year, but what I have found is if you take them at the money line and then an over, or one of the ones that has been great for me lately is Avs money line and Nathan McKinnon goal scorer. Kind of figured, well, if one happens, it's probably going to lead to the other. And you get some real nice odds, so make sure to check that out. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, you guessed it, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for detail. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Jesse Montano, AJ Hayfleet. We are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery today. Talking Avs Nuggets, how these paths seem to split after you put it best on Twitter. They were holding hands, walking down the yellow brick road for so many years. They've gone in two different directions. We were talking about Cale Makar, how he came in and was such a huge boost for the Avalanche. And then that following season, MPJ makes his first appearance for the Nuggets. And while his career maybe didn't get off to like the historic start that Cale Makar's did, he was a difference maker for the Nuggets right off the bat.
Yeah, it was slow. It was a lot slower for him because he had to get into games, and he didn't play very much, and he was like kind of in and out of the rotation that first year, where he was like in the rotation when he played well. You were like, "Oh my god, this guy's insane!" Because I mean, like, how often do you have a legit 6'10" small forward who can shoot the way that MPJ does? Like, there's a reason that he got Kevin Durant comparisons, because if you dream on MPJ maxing out, that's the kind of caliber of scorer that he is, the kind of shot maker, I should say, that he is. And that's you look at MPJ and at his best, you could just see it, especially with a talent like Jamal Murray and kind of this weird unicorn at the epicenter of all of it in Jokic with the playmaking. And you could just see it all starting to come together and how it all made sense, where you were like, look, he's a horrible defender. Like every rookie in the NBA, like the transition to the NBA is brutal defensively for most kids, for most rookies. It takes a couple of years for them to understand, they've got to get stronger. They've got to understand rotations. They've got to understand team concepts. Like it's a very steep learning curve for rookies defensively, and MPJ was god awful at it. And so there were a lot of bumps in the road MPJ's rookie year. To be fair, to be honest, in Cale Makar's rookie year, the only bump in the road was an injury that he had where he missed a handful of games. He missed a couple of weeks worth of games, and that was about it. Defensively, you were like, he has a ways to go, but he's 20 years old. And like in the NBA, defensively, it takes time. It takes time to learn the details, to learn the ins and outs. You know, all the veterans get to pull their little tricks on you for the first time. And you got to figure all that out. You gotta learn all that. It takes time. But offensively, you saw what those two guys were going to mean for those teams. That they elevated those teams' profiles at their best. They elevated what they could do, what they were capable of by quite a bit.
Well, and what I remember about the Nuggets that year with the addition of MPJ, I just remember watching them and it was really weird because, and I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that team felt very different from top teams that we had seen in the NBA in the last 10, 15 years, where so it felt like so few of the top NBA teams were homegrown, right? It was so many free agents and blockbuster trades and super teams. Suddenly you had a Nuggets team that was rising rapidly with all guys that they had drafted, mostly guys that they had drafted as part of their core. And the Avs were in the same boat, obviously, with the exception of Sam Girard. A lot of that core and remains true despite how many changes they've had. Nathan McKinnon, Gabe Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar. Those are all Colorado Avalanche draft picks in the same way. Yeah. MPJ, Jokic, Murray, all Nuggets draft picks.
Yeah, well, and not just that, MPJ, but you also had important players for them ended up being, you know, Malik Beasley and Wancho and Gary Harris. These guys were all drafted by Denver. Yeah. Monte Morris, drafted by the Nuggets. Like, those guys all played big roles on that team. And so you're looking at half that team was drafted by the Nuggets. You know, like there were as always, like injuries, right. And like there were a bunch of guys that kind of slid in and out of gigs here and there, but you know, like they pulled guys off of the street. Like they got a real guy in PJ Dozier who had, like, before he got to Denver, had only played like a handful of games elsewhere, and they showed a knack for developing and finding hidden gems like a PJ Dozier that you have to find when you're not a destination for the buyout market in the NBA, when you're not a destination for the veterans who go ring chasing on minimum deals and join the star-studded. And I say ring chasing, it's got such like a negative connotation, and I don't know, but like it's what they're doing. Like, and it's so everybody's ring chasing. Like, that's the whole point of this thing.
Right.
But, like, you know, like the guys that were on huge money deals and now they're role players, you know, like Dwight Howard in LA the last couple of years. Guys like, you know, the Andre Drummond with the Nets. Like, those types of guys where those were really, really big money players, big role players on previous teams, and now they're just role players and making league minimum so that they can play next to a bunch of superstars that they're homies with.
Right. Yeah, and it was just it was the Nuggets team just felt different from all of that we had seen.
The Nuggets were, and that's why so much of the Nuggets brand is built, not bought, right? Is they created that culture, that awesome culture that they have, that like that tight-knit bond. They've got coaches and GMs who, in their front office, guys who have now since dispersed and gone to other gigs because the culture that Denver created was so sought after that other organizations looked at what was happening in Denver with the Nuggets and said, we want that.
We want
somebody who's part of that. And so that tree is starting to branch out now and filter into other organizations. You look at the Bulls this year. You look at the Wizards for a little while this year. There are some people that were involved in the Nuggets franchise that have gone on to other gigs, and it's because of the culture that was built in part by these string of Nuggets teams. Very, very good. And you look across the hall, look at how the Avs are. The Avs have been very tight knit. And those guys are all homies too. Like
yeah.
you look at all of them, and like every time that a player leaves, it's like heartbreak.
Yeah.
You know, like Tyson Jost gets traded this year, and all the players, knowing that Tyson Jost, all the hockey things that are true of Tyson Jost as a player and his limitations and just how things didn't work out, but they all loved that guy.
Right.
That was their guy.
Dude, it seems like every guy that's been traded over the last 3 years gets a tribute video when they come back. Like,
yeah, and like that's kind of exploded around sports where it's like, show respect to that guy. You know, we love that guy. But also, like, for real, you look at the culture both of the franchises have created. And there are plenty of guys that they have brought in from the outside that have been difference makers for each franchise.
Yeah.
But both the Nuggets and Avs, it started internally, it started at the top, it started draft, it started develop. I mean, the Gabe and Gary bromance that crossed franchises.
Yeah.
The worst, best commercials. Worst commercials?
Yeah. Either or.
Commercials.
Yeah.
Best worst commercials, yes.
But like those commercials did feel kind of representative of like the city at the time. That it's like, because, you know, the Broncos were on a way downtrend. The Rockies have unfortunately been the Rockies now for several years.
Well, and like this was the Rockies' chance. They were in the midst of all of this. The Rockies make the postseason. Right.
Yeah.
In back-to-back years for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Like this was before everybody turned on them.
I actually think it was that year was the first year since the Avs had come to town that the Avs, Nuggets, and Rockies made the postseason and the Broncos didn't in the same year.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're right. Like that was the Rockies' chance. So the end of that season, MPJ comes in. It's kind of an up and down year for him. Cale Makar's true rookie season goes pretty well, all things considered. COVID hits in March of 2020. Both seasons are paused. Both resume right around the same time several months later. In the bubble, the Avs lose in Game 7 of the second round for a second year in a row with 1,000 caveats and asterisks for that series. And the Nuggets go on a historic run, coming back from down 3-1 twice to march all the way to the Western Conference Finals before eventually losing to the Lakers. And again, you're just sitting there.
Goddamn Lakers.
Dude, it's always the Lakers. It's always the Lakers. You're sitting there at the end of the season, at the end of that season, and anyone being rational about the Avs felt good. They had every reason to pack it up after Game 5, Game 6, and say, we just don't have it. The injuries are just too much. We're playing freaking Michael Hutchinson. Let's just get out of this series and let's get the hell out of this bubble. They didn't. They push it to Game 7. They push it to overtime. They had a lead with 3 minutes to go in the third period. So again, anyone rational still felt okay about the way that year ended for the Avs. For the Nuggets, it was another step forward. You're feeling good. You were feeling good. So that was 1920, then 2021.
Pandemic kind of throws monkey wrench into everything.
The seasons are shortened. The teams that you're playing on in both cases, NBA and NHL, fairly limited. You're not getting a healthy sample of everyone. Both teams go in to the postseason, lose in the second round. For the Avs, it was really disappointing. I remember being really wrapped up in that. Can you tell me, AJ? Because I really don't remember what the fallout was from the Nuggets' second round exit last year.
So Jamal Murray got hurt so the Nuggets made the big deal. They finally went. Oh my God. They go get Aaron Gordon at the deadline. They make the big deal. They get 2 weeks maybe or whatever of games. Mm-hmm. And Jamal Murray goes down again. I think it was against the Bucks. Really telling on myself as the hockey guy here.
Blows his knee up. I totally forgot about that.
Blows out his knee, and like it just changes their like he had clearly established himself. Jamal Murray had clearly established himself as one of the like a really a higher end guard. I don't know where I would rank him in the NBA, and I don't even want to try and do that because that'll turn into a bloodbath. But like the clear second banana in Denver, the clear second option. MPJ had taken a big leap, like for real, very good. Like really good, right? And they just get bad luck. Jamal Murray goes down, and if I recall correctly, it was in like a non-contact injury. Like I don't think he like banged his knee or anything. Like it wasn't like you could be mad at somebody. You just be mad at the universe that it did this, and it sunk their whole aspirations, all of their playoff aspirations. It just betrayed all of them.
So let's use that as kind of the lead into this season, because I just, now that you're saying that, it's all come rushing back to me, and that what you just described has felt like this entire season for the Nuggets.
It has been. Jamal Murray hadn't played.
Right.
Michael Porter Jr., MPJ played 9 games and then had back surgery, missed, and then he was ready. And they've been doing this like just the tip thing with both guys for a solid month now. And now that the Nuggets are on the precipice, you're like, why bother?
Right.
You're not winning the series. You're not coming all the way back. Like realistically, you're not. Things do happen in sports. Yeah. So I don't want to just be like, it's impossible. But like,
never over till it's over, but
it's not it's pretty unlikely here. And like both guys are like right on the cusp. If they had the NHL schedule where they got an extra 2 weeks, if the Nuggets first round was starting when the Avs first round was, it could be totally different.
Right.
Those guys could be back. Now they wouldn't be 100% back, but they could at least chip in. They could at least help out, because it's not just those guys. I mean, again, PJ Dozier is the guy that went down. Like they lost starters. You lose 2 starters, that means 2 backups become starters. Right. That means backups to your backups become rotation regulars. And in the NBA, you just don't have teams that are that deep.
Right.
We've talked about 10 or 11 guys that get into games and belong in NBA games or belong in playoff games, I'll say.
Right. Well, and we've talked about that a lot this year with the Avs in the reverse, where when you get this guy back from injury, it's not just him slotting in on this line. It means that this guy now drops down to here. This guy drops down to here. And it, so kind of the reverse effect of what you're talking about with the Nuggets, you lost 2 top guys. So that means that these 2 second-tier guys are now top-tier guys, and these third-tier guys are now second-tier guys. But it just, to me, the narrative around the Nuggets season this year sometimes felt worse than the results.
Yeah, it always, to be honest with you, where the Nuggets are right now has always felt inevitable. Whether it was the first round or the second round, it's only going to matter to the people who really didn't want Nikola Jokic to win the MVP. Which is weird because it's a regular season award, and it has also become the world's most annoying conversation. I would rather spend 6 hours a day for the next 2 weeks talking about a hot dog as a sandwich versus ever thinking about the MVP vote ever again in my entire life.
I just don't get why they...
World's most annoying convo. I hate it.
Why does NBA media feel the need to ask every player who's up for it if they feel like they deserve it? It's just, it's every week and a half, it's a new NBA guy giving the quote of like, I'm the best player.
Let's be real. We asked Cale Makar if he should win the Norris last year. And of course, we got the answer from Cale Makar that we got from Nikola Jokic. I don't care.
Yeah, do not care.
The Denver sports fans are blessed in the way that those guys are singularly focused on other
Conduct their
things.
business,
The reality is that has not borne fruit into any meaningful way yet. But there are asterisks here. There are caveats that you can mention. But the reality is here that this Nuggets season feels lost, and it feels like a missed opportunity. And this is not me bagging on the organization. This is just how it went. It just feels like a missed opportunity. The Nuggets have waited their entire existence for a player of Nikola Jokic's caliber. They got very close with Carmelo Anthony, but only made one truly deep run with him. You don't know how many more they have. They're young enough that you would love to believe that they've got 3 to 5 more years of prime contention. But you never know when an injury could sabotage a future team. Just because it sabotaged the last two doesn't mean they're immune from it ever happening again.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's
a guy having a historic season like what Jokic just had, and for them to not even be able to win a game in the first round is a huge gut punch.
Yeah. It's something, you mentioned that with injuries. That's our conversation around the Avs right now, right? If they are healthy, we feel like they can beat any team that crosses their path.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you go back to that bubble year, as much as we feel like they probably should have beat Dallas, injuries are injuries. You were without three of your regulars up front, 2 of your regulars on the back end, and both goaltenders. Like kind of like the Nuggets in their second round series last year against the Suns, kind of felt like this year's first round series, where it's just like, yeah, you may be able to hang around for a while, but
you're going to make a game or two close. And if you can't close those games out, that was your chance in the series. That was your chance to get into it and make it competitive. And it just didn't happen. That's basketball sometimes. The Nuggets, the Nuggets are legitimately overmatched right now because of their depth deficiencies. And that is just a reality of what happens when you lose important pieces.
Right.
And it was a reality last year when the Avalanche didn't have Nazem Kadri for a single second of their series against Vegas.
Right.
But it was a no excuses approach from us last year covering the Avalanche because they were good enough to win without him. They were good enough to get through that series. They should up 2-0 in that series. There was no excuse for them not to have at least won one more game and gotten Kadri for Game 7. There was no excuse. They blew that straight up. No asterisk needed, no caveats needed like they did with the bubble team. But you can't have that same kind of bottom line approach with the Nuggets because you can't reasonably expect this version of the Nuggets to beat that version of the Warriors.
Right.
Especially with this Poole kid just deciding that he's also an all-star.
Right. So, yeah, no, it almost kind of feels like the bubble year and this year are like interchangeable between these two teams. You
just kind of switch them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then on the flip side, obviously the Avs are still a week and a half ish from starting the postseason. So they have to write the end of their script for this year, right? But the regular season, since the start of November, has felt like a really special run. They've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with an irregular schedule, a compressed schedule on the back end, and they've handled it all so well. And now it is time. This is again, from where we sit, at least right now, it's a no excuses year for them.
It would take like some catastrophic injury luck for the Avalanche to be able to hide behind something like that, because right now they went all in at the deadline. They got 4 guys at the deadline. They sacrificed draft picks and top prospects. They pushed all their chips to, we're serious about this right now. That doesn't mean that they won't be serious about it in the next couple of years. They will be right back chasing a division title the next 2 to 5 seasons. Yeah. No problem. But they are as well positioned right now for a run as they will be. And you could make the argument that it only gets harder from here for the Nuggets. Because there were other injury issues around the West this year. There were other things going on around the West this year that you feel like, had they been healthy and had they been able to get out of this, that maybe they could have made some noise. And in the bubble, they went through Utah. They went through the Clippers. No nonsense, no asterisks, like the versions of those teams that those teams pretty much wanted. And then just got beat. It was a really close series, but just got beat by the Lakers. One of us is frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's just, I wanted to have this conversation today because I just think the story of these two franchises has been so interesting to follow over the last few years. And there's just been so many, it seems like both franchises have had the same level of excitement. And this year, the expectations just felt wildly different. And so this will be the last question I'll ask you, then we can kind of wrap it up from here. Do you think that it's purely because of the injuries that the Nuggets season went the way it did, or did it have a feel to it that they just weren't really in sync? And even had they come back, Jamal Murray and MPJ, had they come back from the injuries, maybe it wouldn't have made that much of a difference.
Well, they wouldn't have been like prime versions of themselves, right? They would have been, you would have had 70% Jamal or whatever. It takes time for those guys, for you to get back into the shape of playing and, back up to speed and rocking at 100%. They wouldn't have had that time.
Right.
So I do think that it's really, I hate to just like wave it off and be like, well, what can you do? It's just injuries. But like, you build a team a certain way. You have so many resources to build a team and expectations. And when you just when you get 9 games out of 2 guys on max contracts.
Right.
And then you also have the problems that they did down roster with the PJ Dozier, who I think was a really low key important player for them. Even though they did a good job mining, they pulled DeMarcus Cousins off of 10-day contracts and the Reed kid, and obviously drafted again to do a great job in the draft with Bones Highland, who's going to be a big part of the rotation moving forward. But like, rookie Bones is not enough. Year 3, year 4 Bones might have been enough to be the running mate that Jokic needed to get them a couple of wins in the series and maybe through the first round. But rookie Bones isn't enough. But you look at next year, those guys are going to be all healthy. MPJ and Jamal are back. Rookie Bones is now sophomore Bones. And whatever they have another first round pick, if Zeke Naji takes another step, like I know PJ got traded because he got hurt though. So he would not have been dealt had he not gotten hurt. That was just them allocating resources in an intelligent way. It's too bad Forbes is as limited a player as he is, that he can't meaningfully help them in the series. Anyway, point is, I have all the high hopes for the Nuggets next season, that if they are back to healthy, whatever tinkering they do on, some of the veteran stuff, mid-level deals, whatever tinkering they get done, their success is going to rest on what happens at the top of the roster. That's in the NBA more than any other sport. Your best players have to be your best players. Yeah. And when your second best player is arguably Aaron Gordon or Will Barton,
not enough.
You're overmatched when you get into an NBA postseason, especially as a lower seed. So that's just life, man. And it sucks, but this is a forever missed opportunity. Just bad luck kind of doomed them from the start. And you hope that we aren't having a similar conversation about the Avalanche in a month from now.
Yeah.
Because if we are, I am going to be very unpleasant to be around.
Yeah, you hope that with the season the Nuggets had, where, like you said, it just kind of felt doomed from the start, that the Avs can kind of reconcile that for the city. The season has kind of felt the opposite for the Avs, destined for greatness. But this is their year. I agree with what Ryan said here in the chat. This feels like maybe the most pivotal, most important season for the Avs since 2001. The expectations are that high.
I think it's the most important season since last season, because last season was the last time where we said this team has the goods.
Yeah, can win.
And you only have so many shots with a team that good.
Mm-hmm.
And they missed it last year. What did they learn from it? And how different is their path this year? That their path looks to be easier this year than having to go through a fellow elite team in Vegas in round 2. Well, we'll see. You know, they might get Vegas in round 1, and the universe is just like, you just gotta do it. You just gotta beat them.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's jump out of here for today. AJ, as always, appreciate you jumping on me. Think this is a fun conversation. We'll have more. We didn't shout out Megan off the top, but Megan Angley did join the DNVR Avalanche beat in an official full-time role today. So big shout out to Megan. Make sure you are tuning in to the pre and post game shows. Tonight, Avs take on the Oilers in Edmonton, 7:00 Mountain Time. We'll be going live with our pregame show 30 minutes before puck drop. And then we'll have our post game show immediately following the game. Both will feature our newest full-time DNVR Avalanche-ite, Megan Angley. So looking forward to that big time. Congratulations to Megan. Really excited to have you on in a full-time capacity.
Yeah, I leave town for a couple of months and you guys hire my replacement.
Yeah, you can just stay. AJ, thank you so much. Big shout out Yah here as well. Always making sure that you guys can see us, hear us, make sure we're sounding and looking good. So as always, we appreciate that. For AJ Hafley, I'm Jesse Montano. This is the DNVR Sports Podcast brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery. We will talk to you guys next week.